Hello and welcome to the webinar. We are ready to begin our program, so let's get started. I would like to introduce your host and presenter for today's event, Dave Kyle.
Good afternoon. How's everybody doing today? Welcome to the webinar. I'd like to welcome and introduce Matt Schmidt from Ease Technologies. Hey, Matt, how you doing today?
Good, Dave. How are you?
Doing great. Matt works with some of our enterprise education accounts and shares some consulting experience that he has working with those organizations. And this is one of our kind of a couple times a year we try to do this presentation, and it always seems to change. Yeah,
always fresh.
Something new always likes to come up for us. So we look forward to doing this one. We haven't done it for a few months, and we have some new information and some new ways you can help keep yourself better protected. If you're not familiar with these technologies, we were founded in 1993, located here in Columbia, Maryland. We provide managed IT services and secure cloud solutions. Please take a look at our website, and at any time you can give us a call on the number listed, provided on the screen. So let's get started. Let's talk about our agenda and just talk about some of the items we'll be sharing with you. So we'll be covering some of your current cyber threats, and there is actually one newer one, cryptojacking, that I'll be talking about. We'll be discussing social engineering as a mechanism and a process that cyber thieves use to gain access to your information. And one of the specific areas we'll be talking about is phishing emails. And then most importantly for you is providing you some ways to mitigate your risk. We did have a few questions come in earlier during the sign-up process, and we'll share those answers either during the broadcast or at the end. But as I mentioned earlier, if you do have a question, please feel free to fill out some of that information on your control panel, and we'll see if we can answer it for you. So some recent information, Matt, has come out about kind of last year's data on breach report from Verizon. Actually, a really good report that we follow up with and gives us more details of what's going on and trends in this area. So one of the big trends that's still kind of consistent, and most people don't realize that 58% of all victims of data breaches and cyber compromises are small businesses. Again, you're mostly going to hear about larger compromises in bigger accounts. And what was the last one you heard about last week?
Chili's was the latest point of sale system that was breached.
Yeah.
But I think it's natural to think that the bigger targets are more, but it's just not necessarily true.
Right. 73% of organizations experience a severe exploit, and I guess I need to define what a severe exploit is, but I think when I read they define severe as disruptive to their business. So it's kind of a low bar, but that's severe is enough. If it's disrupting your business, that's probably important, especially for a small business. And Matt, you want to share this one? This is the one we've been seeing most from anyone of all the reports out there very consistently.
Yeah, definitely. 94% of malware comes from email. So, we're talking about things that are slipping through our security cracks, and people are clicking on them within emails themselves and putting their organizations and their personal data at risk.
Another one for us involves internal actors, and this means some data breaches as well as issues that we'll be sharing and describing to you actually come from internal actors, meaning some internal employee or some contractor is involved with a situation in a malicious intent. So it probably goes unreported a lot, but a lot of intellectual property, IP compromises or investigations involve internal people as part of the issue. That's not necessarily, that's probably the biggest area that happens.
Well, I think most people think that, we put antivirus, anti-malware in place to protect people from the outside, but
right.
We also need to have good policies for internal people and what they have access to as well to protect yourself.
Yeah, many of the legal issues and forensic work around cyber issues involve an internal situation as much as they do outside. 68% of these compromises took months to uncover, and in most cases, on the average, it's somewhere between 5 to 6 months, meaning there's a compromise that happens, malware is installed, and in some cases, we'll explain, they happen, you can be seen almost right away or within days. But many of these things, and one of the newer ones is certainly a classic of this, where it takes a much longer time to uncover that you've been compromised in some way. And no surprise here, but 75% are financially motivated. Other motivations include some of them, it's just intellectual property, which is not necessarily financially motivated. Some's just
in the back end maybe, but it's just a different way to go about it.
Yeah, exactly. So let's cover them. And Matt, maybe you want to cover a few of these, and I'll jump into some of the newer ones if you don't recognize them.
Yeah, sure. There actually are a couple on here that are new to me, but one of the more recent ones was in Atlanta. The city of Atlanta got some malware installed to the point where I don't think they were even able to do payroll. So, and I think they were basically had reverted back to doing everything with pencil and paper, pen and paper, just because they were essentially crippled on the IT side and were unable to do anything. But some of these, like Equifax, are some of the bigger known problems that I think we'll talk about in a little more detail. Uber is a new one for me. What was that one?
That was a compromise in their databases. What the real issue, besides a compromise, which again, the number of organizations that are compromised is very high. The state of Pennsylvania is going to fine them something like $13 or $15 million because of their failure to report the situation. They took over a year to report that the compromise did occur, and as a result, Pennsylvania is going after them for failure to report.
Well, and that really goes back to the bullet on the last slide with how long it takes to uncover these things. Really, puts organizations at almost a separate liability in terms of their obligations to report either to employees, customers, whoever's data has been compromised. The faster you can be aware and deal with it, the quicker you can avoid stiff penalties from nations or states or whoever is regulating it.
So many of these here, Home Depot, Equifax, Maryland, were point of sale systems that were compromised or databases that were compromised. Atlanta was a ransomware situation. MedStar Health was ransomware. Kind of the newer ones there with Indiana and the United States courts was cryptojacking, which we'll talk about more because that's a one that's a little less easily recognized.
Yeah.
Probably the bigger ones that we want to share with people, the ones that, again, we said earlier, the smaller businesses and organizations that you don't see in the paper. I don't think any of these would ever have showed up in the paper except maybe Frederick County, Maryland, with a cryptojacking situation that happened to their servers. So many small businesses are the targets, and mostly due to lack of resources and capabilities, they get a little more easily compromised in these situations. So let's talk about the 5 types of online compromise. I like to kind of distill them down. There's many, but I think they fall into basically 5 different categories. First one is the one I already just talked about, where something like Target, Maryland, where personal information is compromised and taken. And what kind of personal information are we talking about, Matt?
Well, Target's a great example because I had a conversation with my mother about this because she doesn't like to shop online because she was concerned with her information out there. But Target was point of sale system, like some of the other ones we mentioned, where it is people that are physically going into the store and swiping their credit card or using their credit card. So it's a question of where this data is stored. Right. So with OPM, we're talking about, employee files, contractor files, highly personal information for all these people, but it's basically a database. It's not necessarily something everybody's logging into and using on a daily basis.
Right. So another one, as I mentioned, is intellectual property. And kind of often nation states are involved in this. For example, Alcoa was compromised in their process of how they create and make steel. A nation state, China specifically, was uncovered in stealing the information and intellectual property about how that process was done. A gaming company had a very similar situation, but intellectual property actually falls into much more individual situations in companies where an executive, a salesperson, or someone's taking the intellectual property of that organization with them as they leave. Oftentimes companies recognize that something happened, they weren't sure what it was, they bring a cyber forensic person to come in and evaluate those situations and then go after that person once they realize that the company's information was taken.
Right. I think what's interesting about that in particular is you'll see some of the same methods that we're going to talk about, particularly with social engineering, apply to multiple of these, and this is certainly one of them.
And then probably the one we're going to spend a little more time on is ransomware. This is more widely, recognized by a lot of people, but also more widely affected because the way it's being spread. It's just massive phishing attacks that are through emails. And we'll uncover this one a little bit more. Wire transfer heist has been going on for about 4 or 5 years, and there's a couple different techniques that are being used, but typically small to medium-sized businesses and some larger businesses are being compromised to the tune of anywhere between $40,000 to $1 million on these wire transfer heists. It's basically theft. A newer one to talk about is called cryptojacking. The short part of this is basically what happens is malware is installed in servers or computers. It's not seen, and it's used in combination to mine Bitcoin. If you're not familiar with Bitcoin, you may have heard it on the news. It's a cryptocurrency. It's a way to have finance currency around, but to get that currency, it needs to be mined. Okay, and so this malware cleverly sits in the background and mines cryptocurrency, and then so it's using your resources of your computer. Again, we'll talk about it a little bit more, but I want to introduce that one because it's been pretty bad out there. Matt, will you help me cover some of the terms that we have? We're going to make sure everyone's talking on the same page here.
Yep. So malware is kind of the overarching umbrella term that describes any kind of malicious program that is put on your computer. It's designed to do, bad things. It's not designed for good. So a virus is a specific type of malware that is designed to replicate itself. So once it's installed on your machine, it then starts replicating itself and tries to get on any other machine that it has access to on that same network. And again, harmful. Keyloggers are another type of malware where it is put on the person's computer and it then collects and sends back all of the user's keystrokes. So people that are trying to find passwords, credit card information, social security number, any kind of personal information, they're getting directly from the user typing it on their own keyboard. Phishing has been around for quite some time now, but it is basically an attempt to acquire information pretending to be somebody that you trust. So you're getting an email from what looks like potentially your boss or your mother or somebody, your friend, to get you to click on it. And then spear phishing is specific. So in the old days, it used to be phishing was sent out, a malicious email was sent out to 1 million people trying to get 100 people to click on it to do something. Now we have spear phishing where the people that are doing this are much more patient, and they're going after specific companies or people in order to go to maybe somebody 3 levels away. So a contracting company that works for the government, they want access to that government database. They're going to attack somebody at the contractor to get in through a back door that way. So it's, again, very targeted.
So let's talk about some current security, because this is some of the questions that came up. So currently everyone has firewalls, antivirus protection, spam filters on the front end at their email servers, and then already taking advantage of some process of patch management or updates to their computers and devices. I want to specifically address firewalls because we did have a couple questions about that. One question, how important or safe are firewalls? I'd say they're all part of all 4 of these items here that need to be dealt with, and people are using. So for the last 15 years, we've been using firewalls. It's important to keep firewalls updated as you would with your own computer. We take care of our accounts, so we're updating your firewalls for you. I know we have a lot of customers on our call today. So we're regularly scheduling updates to your firewalls. And firewalls are much like your devices that you have, your phone or your computer, they can be compromised. Again, as we already mentioned, though, the biggest area of compromise is through this way of emails, though. 94% of all compromises occur at the point of a email attack and not through your firewalls.
And that's the way to get around the firewall,
right?
So the firewall is your front door that's got a nice, healthy lock on it. And they're trying to figure out a way to get around that.
Right. That's the process that needs to be there. Antivirus is another big important part of all this, and updates to your antivirus protection is basically a database. And the more frequently it's updated, the more capable it is to stop what's known out there. It's difficult for it to stop something it doesn't know. And that's always been the issue. Spam filters will stop many of the bad email that comes in, but still, as we'll show you in a little bit here, and you see regularly, there's lots of things that are happening. Patch management is something we'll talk about at the end, but that's an important part of what you need to deal with all your devices and what you're working with. I mean, there was a casino out in Vegas, I believe it was, that got compromised through their Internet of Things kind of device, their thermostat.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different ways it can happen, but again, 94% of all compromises come through an attack through an email.
Yep.
So the biggest way this happens is through social engineering, and social engineering is the psychological manipulation of people in performing actions or sharing information that could be confidential. Most of it's all unintentional. And let me show you a quick little video of how this can happen, and it's a good way to describe it by watching the video here.
What do you think of when I say the word hacker? Some creepy dude in a basement? Well, that's a misconception. What if I told you there's a class of hackers who don't just have social skills? They have more social intelligence than anyone you'll ever meet. David Kennedy is one of them. He's what's known as a social engineer, or a people hacker. His craft is to dupe you into doing things and sharing information you probably shouldn't.
Can I just get your credit card number?
Some use it for illegal activity. In David's case, companies pay him to find out if employees are leaving the company vulnerable. He and his team show us how it's done. Step 1. Spoof his number so it looks like he's calling from inside the company, and then call tech support.
Hello, you there? Hello?
Hi, this is Ken. How may I help you?
I was wondering if you can take a look at a website I'm trying to get to. It's for a big customer thing I'm working on for Monday, and I can't seem to get to the website from my computer.
Sure. What's the website? I'll see if I can get to it.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate the help. I mean, it could be a stupid thing. I'm really stuck with computers, but so it's www.survey. That's SURVEY -pro.com.
Yeah, I got a prompt to open. I just clicked open, and I'm at the site now.
Here's what the IT guy doesn't realize. By clicking that link, he's just given David full access to his computer.
Whoa, okay, that's weird. I just hit it and it works. It seems like it's working fine now. Awesome. I don't know what you did, man, but I really appreciate the help.
Hey, no problem. That was easy.
That was it?
We're on this computer right now.
You were able to take over this guy's computer within, I would say, like under 2 minutes.
Under 2 minutes, yeah. Under 2 minutes, took over his entire computer, and think of it as not just his computer, but it's pretty much a downfall of the entire company.
Again, in that situation, an organization has firewalls. They spend a lot of money on cybersecurity protections, and the compromise occurs, again, through social engineering and very simple techniques. In this case, it was just a phone call directing somebody to somewhere and compromised. So let's talk about some of these mechanisms that are used in social engineering. Biggest one, I said, email, and always the number one area that we want to make sure people are aware of and get educated. Phone calls have been the number two thing, without a doubt, and I'll share some examples of how that's being done. And some of you may have seen some of this on your own, even personally at home. There's oftentimes these IRS calls that come in. Those are ways of being compromised. Thumb drives is another one. University of Maryland did a statistic where they tested throwing out thumb drives around campus, and they found out through this test that 50% of all thumb drives they put out there were inserted into computers.
Wow.
So, don't ever pick a thumb drive up and put it into your computer that you don't know or trust.
Well, I think some of this goes back to, some of it is innate curiosity,
Sure.
right? So, I mean, I actually had a conversation with somebody where I told them about this issue. They had found a thumb drive. I said, here's why you should not put this into your computer. And then at the end of the conversation, they went, so I should put this in my computer and see what's on it? No, no.
Don't do that. Well, I think people are naturally helpful as well.
Right, exactly.
So you have all those things that are curiosity and helpfulness and not good. Another area is dumpster dives. I want to explain what a dumpster dive is.
Yeah, I mean, this is old school. They're physically going through the trash. They're looking for bank statements. They're looking for anything that has personal information, whether it's birthday, address. There a lot of these people are very patient and they're building a portfolio. Let's say so. they're looking for any shard of information they can get their hands on.
I think they call it in the business world target marketing. Exactly. In this case, it's target cyber hacking. Yeah. So I want to share an example of another bit of detail as we start getting into some examples. Probably 2 years ago, several of the larger healthcare companies, Anthem being the largest, were compromised through a series of phishing attacks. The interesting part of how this was accomplished, though, was fake domain names were created to trick employees into logging into their systems. So instead of having, let's say in this case, my example on the slide is Care First, they would create a domain name, Care First, not with a 1, but with an exclamation point, for example. So someone who was quickly scanning an impersonated email would not recognize when they clicked on the website that it was not really Care First at all, but their own the setup site that was then asking for credentials and personal information, which then they use later on to get access to the bigger databases. So there's a lot of steps that are taken. So again, let's probably jump into some of these emails. I want to educate everyone a little bit on some of this. And this is one I've seen more of on my end recently. And this particular one came out to me last week. And it looks like it's coming from Microsoft because I'm using Microsoft Office 365. And it's kind of telling me, hey, look, you need to authenticate again, which I think I've seen before. And so I'm like, okay, it seems legitimate. It's coming from a legitimate request. Well, if you look a little more closely, you'll see here that the email address really isn't a good email address. That's campallegheny.org is not really genuine to what the Microsoft Office situation is for our company. Always a sense of urgency. So we're going to see some threads here in some of these examples I'll be sharing with you that, always a sense of urgency, and then there's a link to a website. So basically what would happen would be I would click on this Verify Now button. I would probably get to a website that looked like something Microsoft had created. It would ask me for my credentials and authenticate, and I would hand over basically my username and password at that point unintentionally.
There's a lot in there that looks legit too. Mm-hmm. Like you've got the Office 365 logo, you've got the Microsoft logo, and at the bottom, I like this, you've got the note, we will never ask you for payment information. So you're trying to put that person at ease, at a comfort level, so that they're comfortable with clicking on it without thinking too deeply into it.
Exactly. Again, social engineering. So here's one from a while ago, but I think it's a good lesson learned. AT&T voicemail. Sender, I don't use it. I don't have AT&T. Never got one of these emails before, so that would flags go off for me. That's the thing you need to be looking for. What are the flags in an email that you could either decide whether it's trustworthy or not? So right away, I never had gotten an AT&T voicemail email before. Who's this going to? Why would a voicemail message be going to 5 people? It should only be going to me.
Right.
Okay.
Maybe they'll answer for you.
Yeah, that would be nice. There's a file attachment, which seems legit, but every time you have a file attachment, you need to be careful because that's usually how malware is sent to someone.
Well, particularly if it's a zip file, because that means it's a compressed file of something else. I mean, anytime it's any kind of audio file should be a WAV file or
right.
an MP3 or MP4. But if it's a zip, that means there's something in there that you can't really tell what it is.
There's a package,
right?
And when you click on it, that's when you get the surprise. In this particular case, this is from several years ago. It was in 2014 I received this email. But the date on the email itself was 2013. So again, there's a lot of missing information or incorrect information. Also in the email, it said, hey, contact us here. There was no information. So basically, this is a screenshot they had used to try to propagate this zip file, which was containing malware. Another one that I liked a lot to share with people, again, in here, there was a good email address to someone within the company at Ease Technologies, but other parts of it weren't good, or, I had a flag go off. One, there's a zip file again, seemed to concern me. Electronic fund transfer right away, it's financial, so that's even more of a concern. There's a sense of urgency. This was pretty clever. It was sent at 5:01 in the evening, and basically saying, hey, you need to act on this right away, at least by 10 a.m. So it's kind of targeting a financial department. Someone's trying to head out the door. They're thinking, oh, let me just take a look at this before I go. I know it's urgent. I'll deal with it in the morning, but let me just click on this zip file to see what's going on. Well, as soon as they click on the zip file, that's where the malware then gets installed unknowingly to them, that they've just compromised their computer. Again, all these things are kind of similar in a sense of you're going to be spoofed. You're going to have this phishing email. They're going to have similar characteristics to them at all times.
Well, and the really thing to note is once that one person has done that, all of your computers are at risk on that same network.
Right.
So that's why it's so important to educate people and educate your employees about when, think before you click.
Right. Here's another one that came out this little while ago for me. Oftentimes you'll see this from banking. Again, everyone's going to be, paying attention to their bank notices. You need to get to your big one here. Undisclosed recipients. Well, why would my Bank of America send me to undisclosed recipients? It should be sent to me. Again, there's a sense of urgency in the conversation. Your account's on hold. There's a link, and I clicked on this link knowing it was a bad site, and I wanted to see what would get me. And so on the next screen here, this is part 2. This is the page you get to. Again, not Bank of America. Looks very genuine and authentic, but if you look at what's going on, the URL up top there is not Bank of America. So right away, unknowingly, I would think I'm somewhere else. Again, they're looking to get my authentication information. They'd ask for my online ID and my passcode, and I'd be stuck again. An older one, but one seen more recently by a lot of us here, and is this DocuSign one. You've seen this one?
No, I have not.
Yeah, this one came from one of our customers to me. And I just had a conversation with somebody about this on Monday night because they received one of these emails and clicked on it. Basically what it is, it's a malware installation that ends up replicating itself to other users. But the reason this other person clicked on it that I spoke with on Monday was that she was trying to talk to her account, waiting for them to sign a document for them so they could go forward with business. So she saw this, okay, action required, complete the DocuSign document, great, let me click on it. Boom, compromised right away. So again, email phishing, this was DocuSign, happened to be the particular company that was kind of sending this out supposedly, but it's a link to malware and it replicates itself to other people in your email list is what it comes down to. There's a good email address in here, but the link is the key. So anytime you're seeing a link, even though you see a good email address, you got to be wary of it. Again, always with a sense of urgency, though.
And if you don't know, you can take your cursor and hover over a link, and it'll show you the address of where it's going. So if you hover over one of those links and it looks like it's taking you to some place that doesn't match, like the Bank of America one doesn't say Bank of America, then don't click on that.
Yeah, the key is use your mouse to hover over top, meaning you leave your mouse there, don't click, but leave your mouse there, and a little pop-up will show you where you would be taken to.
Right. And if you have an account, like for example with either DocuSign or Bank of America, you can go directly to those web pages and log in with your normal credentials and find out if they're actually trying to contact you for something.
Yeah, and more importantly, bypass the links that are being sent to you. Don't use those links. So let's move actually into some more specific. We shared with you examples of phishing email. Let's talk about some of the actual compromises that are occurring. If you do click on some of these ones, biggest one being ransomware, Matt, we see this all the time, even with all the updates, all the patching, all the things we've just talked about, still people are having this problem. Let's describe to everyone what ransomware is.
Well, it's really, it's similar because you're basically launching the malware typically by clicking on something, but instead of installing something that's, either a virus or replicating or things like that, in this case, it's launching something that encrypts the entire hard drive of your computer and then starts replicating to any other computer on the network that it finds. So if you find a machine that you get one of these pop-ups on the screen that says that you've been encrypted and to pay money, you need to take that machine off of the network as quickly as possible before that keeps replicating. Once it's encrypted, we do not recommend that you pay. The FBI does not recommend that you pay. You really need to have a good disaster recovery plan in place and a good backup in place because oftentimes, particularly ransomware, will lie in wait. So someone will click on something and it may be days and or weeks before that actually executes and encrypts the hard drive. So, for your IT person at that point, we need to go back to the day in the backups where that was not in place. and then restore from there. So there's a potential that you may lose a day or so worth of data, but it's the safest way to get your computer back to its natural state.
Yeah, and right now there's actually 240 different variations of ransomware out there, variants, and there's different names for that. Crypto locker, crypto wall. There's a whole variety of them that are out there now, and the different flavors. Basically, what ended up happening was the guys that originally created this were from Ukraine, and they made a lot of money doing this, and they ended up selling off the malware packages, franchising out the malware packages to other people. They ended up getting caught, but it was already too late because this malware that they created got sent out to or purchased by other organizations, and
once the code's out there, it's out in the wild. Everybody and their mother's going to start using it for various purposes.
Let's give a quick example of how this happens. So basically, hackers are going to create a series of phishing emails. They're going to send them out. In this case, ransomware is going to as many people as they can. They're just going to see it sent out. Hopefully, it's going to get through any number of screening processes through firewalls or spam filters, and it's going to get through. Once it gets through, we're going to get the screen. And now, more recently, they're using this idea that if you do get compromised, they're going to want you to pay in Bitcoin to get the money back because they can't be traced then. It's not like you can wire them through a credit card and that can be traced. Bitcoin's a non-traceable currency that they can receive money on at that point. And then they get their money. So the Atlanta situation was a ransomware situation where hundreds of their computers were compromised. So the city of Atlanta really is just after, I think it was the end of March it started, as Matt mentioned earlier, and they're finally now just kind of recovering from the situation. As Matt said, they were reduced to using pen and paper again. Horrible as that sounds, but and also I know that they had to push off their whole budgeting process by 2 months because it was so egregious of a situation for the whole city.
Do we know if they ended up paying?
I think they did. Yeah. Some of the larger companies have paid money to recover some of the hospitals that were in some of these situations. But it's not even the money. Like $17,000, I think, was one hospital that paid to recover from this. But the downtime is just enormous when you have hundreds of people no longer able to work.
Yeah, and the real problem is you have no idea whether you're actually going to get the data back.
Right.
I mean, you could pay all that money and then they not give you the data back.
All of a sudden they're not responding to you after they get paid. So let's talk about another one. This is a different type of compromise. It's called the wire transfer, and sometimes referred to as CEO fraud. So in this case, it's an impersonation situation where an executive is impersonated in a couple different ways. Usually it's a CEO or a CFO kind of situation, and the finance department is the target. In this combination of what happens is there's a combination of either emails and phone calls, or just phone calls in some cases, where someone will send an email saying, "Hey, Steve, this is Bob, the CEO. I need to contact you. Can you give me a hand here? I'm in a bit of a rush. I need to get a wire transfer out. Are you available?" And if they respond, they start a dialogue over email. And at that point, they may say, "Hey, look, I'm going to have Susan, our corporate counsel, give you a call just to verify what we're doing is legit. Susan will call you in about 15 minutes to give you the wire transfer information, but only talk to Susan." Okay, this is, again, that trust thing. So what ends up happening is the emails get spoofed, and there's really no way to stop that from happening in a lot of these situations. So again, there's a combination. A phone call happens, great sense of urgency. This needs to happen right away. Can you give me a hand? I'm not in the office right now. And then the wire transfer goes out and the money's gone. And these wire transfers are typically at around $30,000 to $50,000. But in some cases, some organizations, unfortunately, were being compromised for months on end. And then one organization in Wisconsin lost $1 million because they just couldn't even keep up with it. They didn't realize they were being compromised month after month after month.
We've actually seen this with pretty small firms as well. So this is definitely not just a big fish type of thing, but some of this is just making sure you have good policy in place so that if you get either a voice or an email wire transfer request, that you have checks and balances in place. So you've got a chain of command that is checking off on these things, and hopefully, you don't have total strangers calling you up and
Right.
asking you to transfer money.
Again, as you saw in that phone call scenario, this is the kind of stuff that's being done.
Exactly.
Is their sense of urgency, spoofing, pretending that who they are and what's going on is not really what's happening.
And the spoofing of the email is super easy to
Yeah.
do. I had one of our guys showed me how to do it, and in less than a minute, he had the head of this organization's email spoof saying, "Please send me all your money." I mean, it's just a child could do it. It's so easy.
Here's an example of one that came to me from Chuck, my business partner, and I got this at 9 o'clock at night, which I wouldn't get an email of this type from Chuck, so right away I knew it was fake. It got through though, and it looks like it's a legitimate email from him. That's his email address, like Matt was saying. It was legit. Sent at night, that's kind of late, flag. I wouldn't normally get something like this. It's missing things. There's always some little thing in here that's throws you off. But again, the sense of urgency aspect of this stuff, the sense of urgency of these things are the thing that you have to watch out for, and how it's being sent.
It looks like Microsoft tried to flag that.
It did. It did. But if you weren't paying attention to it,
sure,
you could have gone right by it. Maybe it was on your phone or something like that. You may not have seen that kind of thing come through. It definitely was flagged, but it got through.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about another phishing scam. This is very similar to the last one we talked about. The difference being that it's focused around personal information, typically around tax season. Usually happens in January, February, maybe in December. Basically, it's called a W-2 phishing scam. It's been happening for about the last 2 years. Again, executive impersonation, a little more of a spear phishing attempt where an email will go out to the finance department or HR department saying, "Hey, look, we need to get the W-2 information for all our employees. Can you get that collected for me and send it back? I need it right away." So what ends up happening is all the social security numbers, addresses, everything somebody might need to compromise someone's IRS tax returns is handed over in that way. So even small organizations were compromised in this situation for the last couple of years. It doesn't need to be a large organization. So it was smaller businesses that were even targeted. So someone would look up on the website and see the person's name was being, John Smith, and they call up the finance department and say, this is John Smith, or spoof an email. I need to have all this information right away. Don't think anything about it. Send it all off. They just gave everyone all the W-2s of everybody in the company. And this happened multiple times. So in a wire transfer heist, there's a couple different ways it happens. I shared two different methods already. Sometimes it's not even using a phone call. Sometimes it's a more direct, technical way. This is an example of what happened to a hospital out in the state of Washington. Some hackers ended up getting very sophisticated in this process. In this scam, they hired a bunch of home workers, approximately 100 of them out of California, and they targeted some hospitals. So they put together some malware packages with keyloggers in it and sent it to the hospitals. The hospitals then got compromised through these phishing emails. And every time they'd log into the bank, all the credentials and authentication information went back to the hackers. The hackers then started transferring the money to the home workers in small amounts to see if it would work. In the course of one weekend, about $1 million was taken out of this banks for the hospital and sent to these hackers in Ukraine. So it's a very sophisticated process that ended up happening. You got to think these guys are very well thought out. They start targeting what they're doing. Again, there was no phone calls done on this one. This was just strictly let's send out some targeted phishing emails and see how we can use this code to compromise these computers to get what we need to get to the banks and get the money sent to these home workers.
And in this scenario, the home workers are unaware that they're doing anything wrong, right? I mean,
they created a relationship with the hackers, unknowing that they were hackers, because they were setting up a way to get paid.
Right.
So money came in. I'm getting paid, and money's being sent out, and didn't realize what was going on. So let's talk about cryptojacking. And have you seen this one yet, Matt?
I haven't seen. I mean, I've read about it, but I haven't seen any specific cases of this come up. Thank goodness. But so far, everything that I've read has been for other people. So
so this is a newer situation, something that's been around for about 6 months. So it involves compromising or putting malware into a computer to mine for Bitcoin, basically. So Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency, can't find out who's using it. It's all in the back end, kind of private. So, but to get Bitcoin, you can either buy it or mine it. And to mine it, you got to use computing cycles. So actually, some people have been setting up servers to mine for Bitcoin, and legitimately. Obviously, there's a bad way to do it, which has been done here in this situation, where somebody infects their servers or PCs, mines for cryptocurrency in the background, takes the money, and somebody's computer is being used for this purpose unknowingly. So the warnings of an infection like this include overusage of the CPU, overheating of your computer, drastic slowdown of your computer, and sometimes they talk about the computers having some failures of the hard drive. I would say it's kind of rare, but basically the situation is your computer's been taken over to mine for Bitcoin in the background. You won't even notice it. So serious compromise. This has been going on. There's about known 4,000 sites were compromised with this back in February. And that was just the ones they knew about. Most was all servers. So we're going to talk a little bit about how you prevent from some of these things. But again, you got to look for, in this case, certainly an email was used more than likely, but no one even knew that they were infected was the bigger problem. So what are your exposures to loss? Let's talk about some risk management on some of this for yourself. So some of the biggest ones, the obviously the loss to the business. You have financial loss incurred by your customers. You have employee data, and there's certain laws and regulations about when your data is compromised, how you deal with that. You have customer data and trade secrets, intellectual property, and they have business interruption. So one of the things I want to share with you, not to say it's the right thing for everyone, but there are ways that you can get and reduce your risk through insurance. Another aspect of this, if you do have a situation, like many of these large organizations, they have to hire a public relations expert to come in and kind of help manage the process for themselves. So just to mention some things, there are insurance available for all aspects of this. You can buy insurance that would provide data privacy liability, notification and credit monitoring expenses. So you can buy insurance, and if your site or servers or your systems were compromised, you could provide this through an insurance process, these credit monitoring services. Crisis management expense, if you needed to bring somebody in to handle the PR aspects. You have regulatory expenses, there may be fines involved, or legal aspects of this. And sometimes you may need a cyber forensic expert to come in and investigate what happened. So there's basically insurance at all levels. There's even cyber extortion, which I guess we wouldn't necessarily recommend, but
don't pay.
So point being is that they're expected in 2022 that the cyber insurance area is going to be about a $14 billion industry. And as I mentioned earlier, the Uber is going to be fined, or attempted to be fined, $13 million because they did not provide notice to those affected by something. And so, there's really some real liability involved with some of these things if you do get compromised and don't take the corrective action on it.
And there's different rules for states and different rules for the Fed. So you really need to pay attention to where you are and kind of what the rules are, because there's no overarching regulation.
Yeah. In general, if you're in a state and you've been compromised, you need to give notice to your attorney general, is what a state attorney general at minimum.
Yep.
But there's a lot of other things that need to happen as well. And the big vague area when it got Uber in trouble was they're supposed to notify people in a reasonable amount of time. Well, no, there's no like 60-day, 30 days, nothing specific on there. Uber notified everybody in 1 year. So the state of Pennsylvania determined that was not reasonable. So that's where they got themselves in trouble. Yeah. So let's talk about some more steps to keep yourself protected. Employee education program. So this is one of those areas that you can really help your organization by sharing this video. This is going to be recorded, and hopefully I'll be able to share it back out to everyone, and they can watch this again. And learning about examples and how to keep yourself protected, really important aspect of this. Having a good disaster recovery plan. And Matt, what would that involve?
So you need to, as an organization, make sure you understand how long you can be down without it negatively affecting your business. So if there is some kind of catastrophe, whether it be a cyber breach or natural disaster or anything like that, what is your plan to get back up and running, whether in that same location or in a different location? And like we talked about with some of these things like ransomware, having that plan is going to save you from losing all of your data.
Keeping devices updated. This is an ongoing thing.
So this is more critical than ever, and this has become almost my raison d'etre at this point. Everybody, it used to be that we could say we're going to wait a little bit until a new update is out. I'm going to wait a few months until make sure it doesn't cause any problems. We can't do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the majority of the updates that are being released by computer companies, whether it be Microsoft, Google, Apple, whoever, 80% of it's now security and bug fixes. It's no longer feature builds. They're not adding things. They're trying to protect people. So you can't wait anymore. You need to make sure your devices are updated. And as you described, you need to think about other devices that you're not necessarily thinking about, like your internet connected thermostat.
Yeah, it's really, unfortunately, we're at a point where a lot of even our home devices, when was the last time you updated your home router? Your home,
Exactly. Great
probably
point.
No one has done that.
Yeah.
Or your home Wi-Fi access point.
Yep.
No one's done that.
And
Again,
Comcast is not doing it for you.
No.
Verizon's not doing it for you.
Again, that's not the main point of entry, but it's something to be considered.
Right.
We have all kinds of devices in our houses now. I know myself, I have a lot, everything from Amazon Alexas to Echoes, all kind of different devices like that. So those are all part of the plan you need to keep track of.
But at the very least, keep your laptops, your desktops, your mobile phones, and your tablets up to date.
Yep, and the applications that are there as well.
Yep.
Another suggestion may be using a dedicated banking computer, and this may be a device, a computer in your office. It can be a little bit older, but it's not going to have any email on it. Okay, probably a really important thing that just sits by itself in someone's office, locked up, no email coming through on it, and it's just used for those kind of purposes. It may seem like, well, that's an overkill, but again, a couple $1,000 device, well, that's not even that much, but less than $1,000, you could get away with something like that in 100, yeah. Password policies. We'll give some details and examples of this in a second, but making sure everyone's following and working together and understand password policies you have in your organization.
Yeah, best practices, uppercase, lowercase, numbers, symbols, at least 8 characters. Some places are now allowing you to do phrases.
Yeah. So
you can get away from some of the symbols and things. So if you can do a long phrase, that's even more secure than doing an 8-character, jumble. So take advantage of what the service offers you to put a good strong password.
But most importantly, within your own organization, you need to all share password policies about what you're going to do and be educated on that. Wire transfer policies, as we talked about that particular compromise, what happened there, so that's an important one to follow. Securing your devices, so not only do you keep it updated, but it's a little more common, but make sure all your devices have auto locking features. So if you walk away from your computer, it locks up automatically after 5-10 minutes. Your phone, same way, it automatically locks up for you. So there's no way someone could just pick it up and gain access to the information on that device. Cloud solutions. This is something we feel very passionately about. So cloud solutions provide, and everyone's using cloud solutions right now. So a lot of people we're often asked, well, is the cloud the right thing to do? Well, everyone's using cloud solutions from what we can see. We offer some more extensive cloud solutions, but cloud solutions provide things that most organizations can't do for themselves, keeping those updates happening on a regular basis, keeping a physical secure environment for yourself. And also, most importantly, its access and authentication process is much more diligent than some other environments as well. And I think the biggest thing about a lot of cloud solutions that most individuals can't provide for themselves is an incredible disaster recovery process. So we really like to talk to organizations about cloud solutions for many of them because of all of these things and more, providing something that they can't do for themselves.
Yeah, agreed.
And I also mentioned a little bit about insurance. That may be another thing that you need to consider for yourself. Talking to an insurance agent about what the risks are, what the options are, and what the costs are for you may be an important part of what you're doing, especially if you have a certain type of business that you're retaining certain types of information and it's something that concerns you. And finally, reporting on cyber incidents. We kind of mentioned this already. If you do have an incident, you do need to make sure that you are reporting on something like that. You need to follow your state's laws and regulations. If you're holding data for somebody else in another state and you're compromised, you need to report on that state too, by the way. It isn't just your state you need to report on, but if you do have an incident, you do need to take action on it. I do have a few password policies. Matt shared some of them with you already. We talked about using long, complex passwords with a minimum of 8 characters. Different site passwords. So, what you use with Facebook should not be using with your bank. I think most people only use 2 or 3 passwords from I was reading on a statistic.
Is that true, really?
Yes, unfortunately. And you know what the number 1 password is, don't you?
Password?
Password.
Yeah.
The number 2 password is
password.
Yeah. The second most common password is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
Not even to 8, huh?
no, I couldn't get there. Too far. Make sure you're doing frequent changes. I try to do it at least twice a year, especially on my more sensitive and important accounts. Matt and I know both use a password manager. One we use is what's called 1Password, but there's a lot of different ones that are available. LastPass is one.
We have one we use for our customers so that they can use it on an organizational level
Right.
as well. So there are different levels and the same tool may not work for everybody, but it's definitely worth exploring.
Yeah. Auto lock your devices. We talked about that already. Two-factor authentication is sort of it's called two-factor or multi-factor authentication, but it's the kind of the next step after your password to make sure your devices are secure or your applications you're getting to are secure. And you may have seen this in your bank or 401k, anything like that. These financial institutions are all enacting this right now. And it's basically an extra level of measurement that you would tell that organization, even Facebook has it now, or Google and Apple, that what your cell phone number is, and you would they would send you a text message with a certain number in there, giving you that next level after your password to get into that information.
Well, the 2 factors are something which is your password, and something you have, which is typically going to be your cell phone or your smartwatch or something that
Right.
you have on you.
One of the things I suggest everyone to do as well is review your email security settings and even all your security settings with any number of applications that you're using. Facebook, Google, Apple, all of them have been modifying their settings for any number of reasons.
I guarantee you they've all changed within the last 2 weeks based on what we're about to talk about in the next slide.
Yeah, you've probably seen a lot of emails, and let me jump to this next part. So whatever applications you're using, review those security settings because there's been a lot of changes coming. And Matt,
you have more. You will have more control over your data with these groups. So yeah, you can.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is something I just want to bring up. This may not affect a lot of people on the call, but it may, and you might want to just think about it. So this is the General Data Protection Regulation from the European Union goes into effect this Friday. And we actually have a couple clients that are affected by this. So this is a new regulation for any organization that has employees, contractors, or customers living in the European Union. So they now have a lot of rights to their data that you are managing, controlling, or collecting. So they have certain things like the right to be forgotten. I think a lot of people have heard that terminology. What
does that mean?
So it means basically that the user can come to you and say, I want you to delete any personal data that you have on me. So anybody that has a website that has cookies that are collecting, and when we say personal information in this regard, we are not only talking about names and addresses and social security numbers, we're talking about potentially IP addresses. We're talking about anything that can be used to track down someone. So it's their right to ask not only to be deleted, but also to move their data. So let's say, for example, they have their email with Microsoft and they want to switch over to Google. They have the right to ask you, if we were hosting that email, for all that data to move over to a different service. So it's really quite complicated. And this is an example. There is a 72-hour notice for any breach of data. So this is kind of an overarching regulation that we don't have over here. But as I said, if you have customers that live in the EU, you have to abide by this for those customers.
Yeah.
And at this point, it's almost to the point where it's easier to do it for everybody. If you're
Right.
you're going to set policy, you might do it across the board.
Make it consistent for yourself.
And consent is key. So you really need to nail down, particularly with things like websites that are potentially tracking, any kind of cookie information, any kind of IP information, MAC addresses, that sort of thing. You want to make sure that the user has signed off on the fact that they know how you're collecting, what you're collecting, and what you're doing with it.
So it sounds like if you are doing business in the EU, holding data or employees, customers, information, you need to be kind of aware of this a little bit more in tune.
Definitely. And if you have questions, you can certainly email us, and we're happy to discuss it with you. But we like I said, we have a couple of clients that have not only customers in Europe, but also some employees and contractors that work over there as well. And just because they're based in the United States doesn't mean that they're off the hook for this. Mm-hmm. Just like Google and Apple and Microsoft are all hair on fire right
now. Let's move over. So Ease Technologies, as I mentioned, provides managed services and IT support for companies. And we do feel very passionate about cloud solutions as well. And we do have a cloud solution called the Ease Cloud Workspace. And many of our customers are on the phone right now, and we did have a question that came in from Valerie that asked, how does a cloud solution eliminate the risk of cyber incident? There's nothing that actually eliminates anything. All devices and environments, computers can be compromised in some way. What the cloud solution does is mitigates and decreases the situation. And how it does that is, as I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, so our authentication methods into the data is much more secure, and we can manage it through two-factor authentications if we need to. The disaster recovery is an important part of this, where most organizations cannot keep a very good disaster recovery environment for themselves, meaning that whether it be a cyber situation or whether it's a flood in your own building, you need to be able to get that data off the servers or off the individual device. Sometimes it's just a device gets lost or stolen, a laptop gets taken from you at the airport. This particular process provides a great way to actually get back at that, because all the data is being stored in a server in the cloud, but also that data is redundant in other sites as well and secure there. And those facilities are secure physically as well as technically.
We couldn't actually just walk up and walk into the door of one of those facilities. I mean, you have to be cleared, you have to have an appointment, you have to have a reason to be there. So it's not just the technical security, it's also the physical security.
Yeah, and also these systems are technically monitored and updated on a regular basis. So, again, you may not be able to update all your systems on your own. In a cloud environment, there's a lot more attention given to the physical as well as the technical security of these systems to keep them updated on a more timely basis. And our solution is a Windows-based Windows-based system that can run on any device. So whether you have a Macintosh, whether you have an iPad, a Chromebook, of course a Windows computer, you can have access to your Windows desktop on that device anywhere, on any time, as long as you have an internet connection. So you could be at the beach working, you could be in your office, you could be at a client site and have access to the same desktop you would have in your office at all times with you. I'm going to wrap it up here. Matt, I want to thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you, Dave.
And I want to thank everyone for attending with us. If you do have any questions, please, you can reach me at easetech.com, dave@easetech.com, excuse me. And there's a survey that'll be coming out. Would love to have your feedback. And I'll follow up with another email with specifics of how you can watch this webinar again if you want to share with other people you're working with. So again, thank you for your time today. If you're looking for a managed IT services provider, please contact me. If you're looking to learn more about the cloud and how it can help you, please contact me as well. Thanks and have a great day.